on the phone-ish, on a telecommunications device, from the blog Hullabaloo, is Digby. Welcome to the program, Digby.
Thanks for having me, Sam. Sorry I'm late. It's a little earlier out here on the West Coast. So
I understand, believe me.
not firing on all cylinders quite yet, but I think I can communicate fairly well.
If I can't tell you how many times I've said 80% of Digby is worth 120% of just about any other blogger.
Well, thank you very much. I think.
I meant that in the best of ways, of course.
I assume so. Yes, thank you.
Now let me get now where did my list of questions for Digby go? Oh, here it is. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you today. Of course, is the maybe as we speak, John Bonaire is somewhere, crying, sniveling into a handkerchief, talking about what a wonderful opportunity it's going to be for him to help further the corporate agenda of our elite corporations and wealthy people in this country. What an honor it is for him to do so. And partnered with such people as Darrell Issa, who didn't Darrell Issa, you would know this because he's from California. Wasn't he famous for turning back odometers on cars?
He was, and car theft, and he also was responsible for one of the most destructive inventions ever known to man, at least to my own peace of mind, which is the car alarm that says "step away from the car," and it's his voice, by the way, that's on that recording.
Wow,
and here in California, of course, it's ubiquitous, and it's a total nightmare. I can't believe he hasn't been run out of office for that reason alone.
I had no idea.
Yes.
Well, I mean, at least he's showing some entrepreneurial spirit. I think that's important. I mean, maybe he can. I don't know why we don't hear more of that. As people start to say, he's going to turn back the deficit, just like he did with cars.
That's all it takes. Break into the Treasury, steal the money, and lo and behold,
So let's talk about a couple of sort of disturbing things that we might expect on the horizon, and I want to get to a couple of memes, but first let's talk about, you've been writing about the grand bargain that apparently the Obama administration and its advisors were very keen on as early as days before the inauguration in 2009. Tell us what the grand bargain supposedly is, and tell us what it seems to be shaping up to be.
Well, it was very explicit. This was happening. I don't know if you recall, there was a meeting where they brought in all the, what they now call the professional left, into the White House, or I guess it wasn't to the White House before the inauguration. And I remember that E.J. Dionne in particular wrote a big story about it, and it was, I don't know, it was in early January, in which Obama laid out his plan to enact a grand bargain with the Republicans. And it was, capital G, capital B. I mean, we're talking grand bargain where everyone was going to have, quote, skin in the game, and we were going to solve all of America's problems going forward for, I don't know, the next 100 years. It was a huge issue, a huge negotiation where they were going to lay it all out on the table.
I love the idea that we're going to solve all the problems. And you know what? I'm willing to wait. If it takes 3 meetings to do it, let's do it.
Hey, I'm not going to wait that long. I'm sorry. 2 meetings max, and I want it done. That's, this is what we hire these people for. And it was interesting because it was in the middle of, the economic meltdown of the century. We were still reeling from what had happened, and nobody, and at the time they were talking about having to put through what we thought was going to be, $1 trillion stimulus. Mm-hmm. And it struck me at the time as being what the hell? This was like, it was so hubristic, so arrogant, so, absurd. First of all, the idea that the Republicans were going to sit down and bargain in good faith struck me as being delusional. But even beyond that, the idea that there was this huge idea of being able to solve once and for all everything, which is essentially what it was. I mean, this was like, we're going to put education on the table. We're going to talk about, so we're going to fix the quote entitlements, which automatically my alarm bells went off and I went, we've got a problem. In any case, this was out there. And, you'll recall in the early days, they had these summits, right? They had the Fiscal Responsibility Summit. They had the Healthcare Summit. They were bringing in people from all over the land, and they were going to just sit down and hash it out and fix it. And the Fiscal Responsibility Summit was the first place where I realized they were really serious about this Social Security thing. And they were going to bring in people, bad people, like Pete Peterson was going to be a keynote speaker. And
tell us who Pete Peterson is, because his name gets bandied about quite a bit.
Pete Peterson is a billionaire, Wall Street mogul who, multi-billionaire, I should say, who has devoted the last 30 years of his life to the destruction of Social Security. He calls himself a deficit hawk, but it's obvious that really isn't the issue. No matter what, we had a time, for instance, in 2000 when we had a big budget surplus, and he wasn't there saying, huzzah, we fixed it, let's move on to the next problem. He was still cranky and saying, well, we should, use that for some other purpose. He's always, his view is, and I think it was expressed probably most, revealingly when he said back in 1994 that this country can't afford to let people spend the last third of their lives on a publicly paid vacation. So I think that's pretty clear how
right. I mean, he's one of these guys who just believes from an ideological level that this country turned socialist in 1938 or 37, whenever Social Security 36 came in.
Right. Right. He's the Andrew Mellon, those guys. I mean, just basically he's one of those, he's what he's a plutocrat, basically. Right. And he's devoted a great deal of time and money to this. Most recently, within the last decade or so, he created the Peterson Institute, which he devoted $1 billion to, which is specifically designed to reduce entitlements. Again, they call it deficit reduction. We know that's not true. They pretend to be in favor of, tax cuts, tax hikes, but whenever they actually come up, they're always the wrong ones. So we know that this is what he's about. In any case, the Obama administration had invited him to be a keynote speaker, and word got around, and there was enough of an outcry among the, quote, professional left that they decided that it wasn't good timing to do Social Security, especially with, we were in the midst of an economic catastrophe, and a lot of people were feeling a little bit insecure. So maybe putting Social Security and pensions on the table wasn't the smartest thing to do at that moment. So they pulled back a little bit, but it did come up, and there were, comments made, one in particular by Gene Sperling, who is under consideration to take Larry Summers' place as the National Economic Advisor in the White House, who said, we think it'd be great to do to be able to fix Social Security for as far as the eye can see. People will thank us for that. So they had this in their heads from the very beginning.
Now we should say there's two points here. One is Gene Sperling is supposedly the liberal that is going to be hired, but the other is that the idea of fixing Social Security as far as the eye can see. I mean, first of all, if you don't think Social Security is fixed right now, then your eyes are like bionic man eyes, because you're seeing further than 27, 28 years into the future, and even then, it's even debatable whether or not there's even any problem with Social Security at that point. But the idea that even if you were to fix Social Security for 75 years, there's nothing to stop the powers that be from putting Social Security in the exact same position as it is in now in 10 years.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, they're not going to give this up. The whole idea is to end Social Security. I mean, they just simply have an ideological and philosophical belief that it's wrong, that it's socialistic, that that we shouldn't do it, and therefore, I mean, I think they truly believe that, I don't know, the elderly should go sell pencils on the corner, get charity, or be rich. I mean, that's about it. And so, this isn't going to end with whatever it is that they come up with. And of course, and it's a battle that they like to have. I mean, one of the things that the right it understands is that the battle is part of, their reason for being. If so, they continue these battles because it justifies their existence, right? So you can't solve problems when you think about that. You want to keep the fight going anyway. And in this case, it's completely unnecessary. I mean, look, we've got a lot of problems in this country. Social Security doesn't happen to be one of them. It's just not there. I mean, yes, somewhere down the road, there's going to have to be an adjustment made. It's a very simple one. You raise the cap on the payroll tax so that people who are, make a lot of money pay more into it. Simple. This isn't whatever happens, and it can happen down the road. We just do not have to think about this right now. It's not contributing to the deficit. That's one of the big myths about this whole thing, is that Social Security is somehow responsible for the deficit. It's not even part of the deficit. They don't count it. It's not even in there. The Social Security system's been in surplus for years, mostly because baby boomers like me have been paying in double our whole lives, not double, but substantially more allegedly in preparation for our own retirement.
Right. This was the Greenspan Commission under the Reagan administration, which basically saw the demographic bump. That's the thing that always sort of shocks me, that how many people sort of like make a big deal about, but baby boomers are retiring at 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every 30 seconds. Well, I got news for you. There's a reason they called them baby boomers.
Right.
Like, they knew there was a lot of babies, and if you could add 0 plus 65, you could figure out when they were all going to retire. So this wasn't like this is some type of alchemy here that you need to be.
It's like everybody just woke up and noticed.
Right.
On
Oh
CNN,
my God.
they did this.
It never occurred to me why we called them baby boomers.
Yeah. On New Year's, they did this on CNN. They had a segment. We go, oh my God, look what's happening.
Well, to be honest with you,
every day,
when I was filling in for Olbermann, in the morning meeting, they have a morning meeting where we talk about the stories, and somebody says, there are 10,000 baby boomers, and what's this going to mean for Social Security? Well, this question was asked literally 27 years ago in 1983. And they came up with an answer, and so nothing. It's not going to change anything. This is not like all of a sudden people realized on 2010 geez, I just realized all these people are turning 65. All right, but let's move on from that. So we're on the grand bargain here.
Right.
What theoretically are we going to? So we're going to cut Social Security. What are we going to get for this? I mean, what's the bargain?
Well, that's the question. I mean, I think just to just go back, just in recap, just a little bit. I think what Obama has been wanting from the beginning was to have a legacy of having solved these great problems.
Right.
Health care, Social Security, solvency through the end of time, whatever else, whatever else they had on their agenda, these big, huge, intractable problems that were going to require bipartisan cooperation. So they had that in their heads, and I think that they still see that as being. I'm guessing that they still see this as being what they want to do because they're doing it. So there you go. So when we look at what we're doing now, they're probably going to come in, I think, with the recommendations of the President's own Deficit Commission, which, by the way, put Social Security on the menu, and it wasn't even on the mandate for the commission.
Right.
They weren't supposed to look at Social Security, but they said, you know what? We've got a little extra time here. Why don't we fix that problem? So we'll do that too. And so they actually put that on in their report, and they had no business doing it, but they did.
Well, we should add that first of all, it's not even a real report. By their own rules, they were supposed to have 14 out of 18 people validate any report. It's not even a report. It's just a couple of guys who got together in a room at this point.
Exactly. They couldn't get the votes they needed to turn out a real report. They should have just said, hey, we couldn't agree, and that's that. But instead, they did an end run, put out the report of the two deficit hawks that were put in charge of it, Alan Simpson and Erskine Bowles, both of whom were adamant about quote deficit reduction. They didn't exactly go into it with an open mind, and in the end they put out this quote preliminary report that is now being used as the basis for a group of centrist senators to come in. We're going to start working with that. So that's what they're working on as sort of a framework, I think. And my as I'm watching what's happening unfold with the Republicans coming in, Lindsey Graham signaled on the weekend that he would not consider raising the debt ceiling until we dealt with entitlements. And I'm assuming that's kind of a, that's a shot across the bow that that's going to be one of the hostages in this negotiation,
Right.
is the debt ceiling. There are other things that are out there. I mean, this negotiation, which will undoubtedly take place among players in the White House and Republicans. It appears to me that that's the way this negotiation is going to go. I mean, there may be people in the Senate who are sort of operating around the edges on this deficit commission concept, but it sounds to me like they're planning to do something fairly, grand, if you want to coin out,
But the bargain is going to be, you cut Social Security, and we will not cause the government to go into default and crash the stock market.
Exactly. And I think what they will give as a sweetener for the White House probably to use as a sop, they think, to the base, is that they're going to do what they call tax reform, which is basically they're going to, do some alchemy with the, with the corporate tax, which they think is going to sound really good to us because, gosh, those liberals really hate corporations. So what we'll do is we'll say we're sticking it to the corporations, and we'll raise a bunch of money doing that, and we'll cut Social Security, and the Republicans will agree not to crash the economy, and it will be considered a great big victory, just like the lame duck tax cut extension was, and everybody goes, "Isn't this terrific? We've got real leadership in Washington again." Now, the problem is, of course, the tax reform will not be real tax reform. I mean, they have big, very, very fancy tax lawyers available to skirt any of those rules.
Right, of course.
The raising of the debt ceiling is normally a pro forma vote. Not even thought about. I mean, they can do it by acclamation. It's not even seriously used, but suddenly, because of the teabaggers, they've decided they're going to turn this into a bargaining chip. And so what happens? What's the real thing accomplished in that? It's the entitlement cut, and I don't think it can be Medicare because that's already sort of encompassed in the healthcare reform. So we're talking about Social Security, and if you look at the Freudian slip there, the Deficit Commission's recommendations, you can see the outlines of what the Social Security.
Right, they're going to raise the retirement age, and they may do some means testing on the higher end, which is a way to sort of like chip away and degrade the political underpinnings of the program. But let me ask you this: I want to. When we look at these players, on one hand, you have the P. Petersons who are ideologically opposed to Social Security. They hate the concept. I imagine so we could put him into one category. They hate the concept of this country becoming socialist, communistic, and they're convinced that it's been that way since basically the last 80 years because of Social Security. On another, category of person who would hate Social Security is someone who knows that from a purely political perspective, it is the linchpin of Democratic politics. That Social Security is the one thing that Democrats own and is a third rail theoretically. And then it seems to me you move into people like maybe Simpson and Bowles, the head of the people who are just basically out to say like, okay, we're really wealthy. We've got this deficit problem, and that is a problem maybe for some of our wealthy bondholder friends. Where can we get the money without having to raise taxes on rich people? We can steal it from Social Security. So it's not a question of like these people are not like Pete Peterson who just think that there's something morally repugnant about old people not starving to death. They just sort of feel like, well, I don't care about old people who are not as rich as me. What I do care about is not having to raise taxes on on the rich. And so Social Security, we're basically stealing the money from Social Security to pay off the deficit, right? I mean, isn't that what it is?
Well,
they're basically saying, like, we have borrowed money from the Social Security Trust Fund. There's an easy way to sort of like deal with the deficit,
right.
And that's by basically stealing that money.
Yeah, we just won't pay it back, which is essentially what they're saying. I mean, they're saying that, I mean, the
And do you
Social
think
Security
Obama's
Trust Fund.
caving? When we get to Obama, where is he on the spectrum? Because I don't see him as caving. I think he just believes sort of some combination of those categories.
Yeah, well, it's really hard for me. I never know. He's an enigma to me and always has been. It's particularly about this kind of thing, but most people are. I mean, I don't honestly know what's in his heart, but from what I can gather, I mean, I see him over the last 2 years as being, he's a technocratic guy. He wants
Mm-hmm.
to be seen as a guy who solved problems. He went in there and, brought people together and knocked some heads and got it done. That's how I think. I don't think he has a particular ideology. At least there's nothing that I can see that indicates that. So my feeling is that he's somehow been convinced that this is a problem he can solve. It's in fact
And that the
it's
deficit is the paramount ultimate problem. That
right.
poverty
You
is
can fix
not
it. And
that.
by the way,
I'm sorry.
yeah, and by the way, Bill Clinton did solve that deficit problem, and I suspect there may even be some idea that, well, he needs to do that too, so that he can maintain, I don't know,
He can be
maintain the
America's
Democratic
he can be America's first
reputation.
black president who was the America's first white president who was black.
Right. Something. I mean, I
Copying
don't
Clinton.
even want to. This is beyond my ken to get into
Wasn't
that
Clinton
stuff.
the first black president? And
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Obama
And
could be
now
the first
Obama's
black president who
yeah,
was
but,
the first white president who was black. I mean,
right,
I guess,
right.
because someone said to me recently, and someone who is from a very wealthy person who is from sort of the world in which the people around Obama emanate from. And I was saying, like, what do you think it is about Obama? And he said he believes these people. He believes the Robert Rubins. He believes the Larry Summers. He believes these people, and he believes that they have achieved what they've achieved based on merit. And it is because of where Obama came from that he views these people as actually having a legitimacy that their records would not suggest they should have. And this guy says, I know this because I came from these people. These are the type of people who get C's in college and cheat at tennis. And this was a guy who definitely did grow up with these people. And he said Obama believes them. And I think that's, and it's relevant not just from a sort of historical psychological standpoint, but the best way to fight this. And maybe it's not about convincing Obama. Maybe it's just about providing some sheer political strength.
Well, that's the question of the age, isn't it? I mean, how do you influence this situation? I don't know that we've had very much luck so far, although we may have had more than we realize, just simply because we don't know what position they started from. So it's
Right.
possible that we ended up a lot better than we might have. We just don't know it. I suspect, and I do think this is true. Again, this is a guy who I consider to be like a technocrat, rather than a philosopher, ideologue, or even a partisan. And I think that he does turn to those guys because they're the experts, right? I mean, this is the best and brightest syndrome that we're reliving here, which is that these guys who may have even done some good things back in the 90s under a completely different situation, and I'm not gonna condemn them across the board. Whatever, they are what they are, but they are obviously at this point inadequate to the task. At this point, I mean, we're just not seeing the results that need to happen for both a political and a policy level. Clearly, their ideas aren't working, and yet what I think is happening is that and this is another part of the Social Security grand bargain, is that they continue to believe that they need to send signals to markets. It's not just them. It's happening in Europe as well. I mean, you're finding all the central bankers, all the political leaders in Europe, they're all flailing around on this because I don't think these people really know what to do. And what it appears to me is that they are captive of this last 20, 30 years of neoliberal economic thinking, which is that, we need to free up markets as much as possible and that, we have to send signals and we've got to, I don't know, write in code and we've got to make sure, in other words, the government itself is not an instrument to be used directly in the economy. Everything has to be done through the middle men who run the markets. And to my way of thinking, that's the big fallacy here, is that they actually believe that these same people who just ran a con of unbelievable proportions and are about to do it again. I mean, just, see what these people are doing and look at the markets and, this isn't reason that's driving them. It's opportunism. And, they are perfectly willing to kill the golden goose, more willing than ever now that we've shown that we'll bail them out,
right.
no matter what they do. And so, this kind of, it's the whole confidence fairies thing that Paul Krugman talks about and bond vigilantes and these phantoms that they've created that are now in their minds instruments of the economy that they can influence, and only in an indirect way. What it really is, it's an abdication of their own power. And we can speculate about what the reasons for that might be, but I think a lot of it has to do with campaign contributions and class solidarity and a whole lot of stuff like that. But it's very, very obvious to me that they don't know what to do. Or if they do know, they're rejecting those solutions.
Or they have a different measure of success.
True, and that's possible. True, yeah. I shouldn't take that off.
I mean, I think that there. I mean, it is clear that they don't. Well, at the very least, the calculation from the administration is that the worst thing about the massive unemployment and continuing unemployment we have is talking about it.
Yes.
Not the actual pain on the ground, right. not what it's going to do to maybe the future of our workforce. The worst thing about it is that people talk about it. And beyond that, there's no urgency. So let's just not talk about it, and we've dealt with half of the problem.
Right. And I think that there's also an idea that, if you talk about it, you depress people, then they won't go out and they won't, spend up their credit cards. And then where will we be? We really need people to be optimistic. So let's not talk about, let's not be Debbie Downers here with all this talk about unemployment.
No
and
kidding.
What that
That's
does,
what I got to do for the Majority Report membership. I got to stop talking about unemployment just to get.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is, and then that's an old story. I remember back in the early '90s during that sort of, what now is a tiny little recession that we were all,
right.
Angst-ridden over at the time. But that was one of the big things. Don't talk the economy down. You got to talk it up, because only that will make everyone believe. I mean, it's all sort of this weird armchair psychology that seems to be driving this. Whereas the truth is that the government, they need to spend money. It isn't brain surgery. It's not really a difficult problem. They need to spend a bunch of money and put people to work, put money in their pockets so that they can, pay down their debt and go buy a bunch of stuff and basically, live like human beings and have the economy recover. I mean, I realize it's not politically easy because we have, batshit insane people in the Congress, worse now than ever. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Michelle Bachmann, I heard this morning, is talking about running for president, and God knows, I hope she does. But
Dorsey just gave a fist pump in my office. He just was like, "Yes." He's already planning all the videos. Well,
God.
Let me ask you this, and we got to wrap it up here in just a minute. But what can we do to fight the Social Security the Social Security cuts? I mean, when guys like Dick Durbin are coming out of the room and saying, like, I think we can live with raising the retirement age, what can we do?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is tough, but I've got to admit, I think one of the things that there have been people sort of tuned into this for quite some time. People who've been working on it. They've got this group called the Social Security Works, and there are a lot of academics and various think tanks and groups who've been sort of organizing around this because they saw it coming too. It's not like I said, this was Obama called it a grand bargain and put Social Security on the table. So it's not like he's been keeping it a secret. And I think that's one of the things we have to fight. I've been reading a lot recently, even among some liberals, saying, well, I don't know. Obama's never said he's going to cut Social Security. He just wants to fix it. Well, that's what we need to fight. And I think that that's one of the things that is.
So we have to clearly delineate essentially where Obama stands on this.
Yes. And I think, look, tax hikes are not going to happen. I think that is a pipe dream. Right. It will not happen in this Congress. It just won't. It is a heavy lift to hike taxes at any point. I mean, Bill Clinton basically blew up his first term on doing a tax hike. And Obama totally whiffed on it. He had a chance to let the Bush tax cuts for the wealthy expire. But he would have had to do it by extending them for the middle class early in his term when he had the political clout to do it, and he didn't. So, they knew they weren't going to extend those. I mean, I think that, they knew they weren't going to let them expire.
Right.
I think they just knew that. Otherwise, they would have strategized very differently because once they were decoupled from the middle class tax cuts, you could have done it. Otherwise, it was always going to be a hostage situation. So, it's a very, very heavy lift to do it. I don't even think they're going to be able to re-raise the taxes, the payroll tax. They're not going to do that. That new agreement that they did with the 2% payroll tax holiday. Ask Gray Davis how that works out. Because he tried to do that in California when California got into trouble in 2003, and he got recalled and kicked out of office for trying to raise a car tax back up to a level that it had been previously.
Right.
And that's 2003. I mean, I can't even imagine what would happen if they try to do it now. So it won't happen. So tax hikes are off the table. Even the sane. Lifting the cap. It won't happen. I think that's absolutely insane. So the only way you can, quote, fix Social Security is through benefits cuts. And that's what they're talking about. So that to me, it's just really simple. We just hammer it home over and over again.
It's not broken.
Be annoying professional and amateur left, whiners, and let people cast their slings and arrows at us and just take it, because we have to get that out there into the bloodstream that this is what's happening.
So in other words, basically what you're saying is stop hoping for the pony for Christmas and just deal with the shoes that you're getting.
Exactly.
We got to be defensive. We've got to go back into that defensive posture and recognize that's the situation we're in and fight as if this is 2005 all over again.
Exactly. And don't expect, the White House isn't going to love us for it.
Nope.
They're going to hate us for it. So just expect that, understand that that's our job. That's what we have to do, and stop hoping that we can all, be one big happy family. This is tough. It's not the position that anybody wants to be in, but we didn't ask for it. We didn't put Social Security on the menu.
That's right.
It is what it is, and the people responsible for it are the people responsible for it.
Digby from the blog Hullabaloo at digbysblog.blogspot.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Sam. It was fun as always.
Yes, I enjoyed it. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
All right, folks. We went a little long. Didn't get to all the stuff I wanted to get to. She's going to make my research easier sometime at the end of the week. Maybe I'll have to do another podcast. I will take your IMs at Majority FM, Sam Seder Show, immediately, almost immediately. I mean, practically in about 20 seconds. And folks, if you enjoy coffee, and I know you do, visit justcoffee.coop. Get your 10% discount by using the coupon code MAJORITY. And speaking of Majority, why not become a Majority Report member? Let's fight this battle on Social Security together. Think of the Majority Report as your retirement insurance. You won't be able to eat, but at least you'll have something to listen to every day. All right, folks, stick around for the post show.